Mizzurna Falls. You may know about this game. You may have even tried it, or maybe you've never even heard of it. But I think it is safe to say, it definitely flew under the radar for various reasons. In this video, I want to take you on a journey back to 1998, when one of the most ambitious PlayStation games came out. It is my favorite PSX game, and I have put hundreds of hours into it. So I want to make the ultimate Mizzurna Falls video, where I talk about everything that comes to mind about the game without spoiling much. I hope you'll find a newfound appreciation for just how incredibly ahead of its time this game truly was. Grab a cherry pie and some coffee. We're going to Mizzurna Falls. The game released on the 23rd of December 1998, developed by Human Entertainment's Sun Studio team. The head of the project was Taichi Shizuka, director, planner, and scenario writer. The story, the characters, the locale, the vibe has elements of some of David Lynch's best work, Twin Peaks and Blue Velvet, with some unique twists. This game is one of, if not the first ever, fully open-world game with driving. It is an absolute miracle that this can be ran on the fairly limited hardware of the Sony PlayStation. Some elements we wouldn't even see in other games for quite a while longer. But first, let's get some context and see what's going on in this game. We're in the last week of 1995. The game's intro gives us a synopsis of the events that transpired on the 23rd of December. A girl seems to have been attacked by a wild animal, and another disappeared. It has an awesome English narration, which makes me wish the whole game were dubbed like that.
6:13 a.m. on the 25th of December. A small town in Colorado, at the foot of the Rocky Mountains called Mizzurna Falls.
The main menu is simple, but beautiful. You get to either start a new game, load game, adjust your screen, or turn vibration on or off. We suggest you turn vibration off. Not entirely sure, but we think it may cause more frequent crashes. Hitting new game, we're presented with some awesome, definitely Twin Peaks inspired cozy shots of the snowy, quiet little town. The game opens with a prologue, where our main character, Matthew, learns about the disappearance of his classmate and best friend, Emma. We can skip the prologue by pressing the start button. If you tried pausing the game here and noticed how the game skipped this section, well, that's why. Here the game introduces some of the characters, and we get to talk to a couple people to gather some more information. Then we're basically on our own. The game begins for real this time, and we have to figure out what happened to the missing girl. A clock appears in the top right corner, and that's right. This game has a real day-night cycle, and certain events are tied to the clock, happening at certain times only. Every NPC in this game has a schedule dictated by the clock. It's not a strict schedule. They don't have to be at a certain place at a certain time. It's more about what time they get going from point A to point B. For instance, the timer pauses whenever we are in conversation, have our phone up, or getting in or out of a building or our car. Meanwhile, the NPCs are still doing their thing, going to the next location in their schedule. Obviously, this also means people will be at work, so you can't find them at their homes during the day. Conversely, come too late and they might be sleeping, so they won't open the door. Time itself isn't running in real time, and it's hard to say exactly how in-game time correlates to real time, since it is fairly variable, not only because of the aforementioned pause of the timer during cutscenes, but also the passing of time relies on the frame rate of the game, which is quite inconsistent, but more on that later. What kind of game is Mizzurna Falls exactly? If I had to describe it, it's kind of like a point-and-click game, but without pointing and clicking. A fully 3D game where you can talk to people, interact with objects, show people different items from your inventory. Some people will be quick to compare it to Deadly Premonition to have some form of modern reference. While they were both inspired by Twin Peaks, Deadly Premonition goes a little too far, even after being shut down for a little while by the Twin Peaks rights holders for the original form of the game, Rainy Woods. Deadly Premonition is one of the best terrible games, irritating and charming at the same time, but it definitely lacks the subtlety and style of Mizzurna Falls. Shenmue could also be a good comparison, and there are certainly some similarities in terms of the gameplay and style. Mizzurna did all of that a year prior, however. Now obviously I'm not saying Yu Suzuki had taken inspiration from Mizzurna Falls, since the man himself has stated he is not a gamer, and Shenmue's development hasn't been inspired by any other game. The graphics look charming, and you can always tell what's what. However, the frame rate fluctuates and can make the game more difficult to play as a result. It also operates in a slightly letterboxed mode, reducing the amount of pixels to render. If you happen to own an OSSC or any other scaler or line doubler that can output with a 1080p over option, then this is good news, since displaying a 5x mode in 1080p will enlarge the image a bit, almost completely filling the 1080p canvas with only minor black bars on the top and bottom. This is the method I've used for all the direct capture footage you see in this video. I'm not sure if this was done to try and improve the frame rate or if it's more of an artistic choice, mainly because I highly doubt that this helped with the frame rate whatsoever, as the game is definitely more CPU bound. The game does utilize similar techniques to Shenmue, where it occasionally removes NPCs or cars from our view when there is too much happening. The game uses tank controls. You steer Matthew using the D-pad, while holding X makes him run. Square and circle are the context-sensitive action buttons, picking up things, talking to people, etc. Triangle brings up your menu. Here you can look at your map, items in your inventory, and use your phone. The L1 and L2 buttons act as quick 90-degree turns to the left, while the R1 and R2 buttons turn you to the right. These quick turn buttons make navigation a lot easier once you get used to them. And finally, the start button just pauses the game. While the game does not support the use of analog sticks, you can turn the analog button on and still control the game, unlike some other games. I personally don't feel any difference in the way the game feels with it on or off, so not sure what purpose it serves, unless it's just there to support vibration. While Shenmue allows you to take your time with your tasks, this game doesn't mess around. You basically have 1 week to solve the mystery, and some events can only happen at certain times on certain days. So there will be a lot of trial and error trying to figure out your next move. Sometimes we get hints, other times we really have to scratch our heads and just try random things. Playing without a guide requires a lot of patience and dedication. You could go in and try to do the whole game in one go. That was probably the original intent. However, you will probably lose track of what is happening and quickly run out of things to do. Watching someone's first playthrough of the game, they managed to get through it in a little over 50 hours. They would try the days individually instead of letting the game play out till the end of the week, and only moving on to the next day if they were satisfied with the result. This is a good way to experience the game in my opinion. One thing I'd like to point out is that Monday is one of the busiest days at the start of the game, if you want to get to everything that is, but after that, it calms down. And definitely take notes to aid your investigation. Occasionally, an important character may show up outside of Matthew's shed to give us new information about what's been happening. Like in this case here, Winona showed up on the morning of Tuesday, just waiting for us, and Wait, is this what I think it is? Winona wants to tell us her feelings? Oh wow, this is unexpected. Oh, never mind. She's just standing exactly where the dog is and it's taking priority. Who's a good boy? Speaking of notes, in Matthew's little shed behind his uncle's shop, you can pick up a notebook which contains some information about characters and it writes down phone numbers and such. Phone numbers use 4 digits with a combination of the 4 face buttons. Some of them can be found in the phone book or on random notes. Others can be quite tricky to obtain. By the way, if you accidentally bring up your phone, you don't have to type in a number just to get out of it. Simply press one of the quick turn buttons to hang up. This shed also serves as our means to save the game and pass time. You can go to your bed and decide if you want to take a nap for 1 hour or sleep for 5. These are the only 2 increments you can choose from, so if you want to pass more time, just stack up some more sleep time. The shed has some facilities for Matthew to do his business and clean up. There's also the aforementioned cute dog outside that you can pet. In the game files he's named Rodriguez. I nicknamed him Dogriguez. However, the place lacks a cooking facility, so to satisfy your hunger, you can visit one of the fine establishments in town. Heinz Diner, most analogous to the Double R Diner, will sell you some delicious dishes and drinks and will have a special unique meal to order every day. Bar Wolves, on the other hand, analogous to the Roadhouse, is more of a snacks that go with alcohol type of place, but Matthew is underage, so no drinking and nice cold delicious Madweiser, or a cougar. Or my favorite, the Corolado Cougar. There's also a taco truck in town, however we cannot get any delicious grub from this one. While Bar Wolves is only open starting from 8 PM, Heinz Diner is open almost all day, and features a groovy soundtrack that plays different songs depending on the time of day, which is an awesome attention to detail. This is also true for the music in the outside world. Driving around Mizzurna Falls, the game features a variety of tracks, mellow and comforting during the day, mysterious and foreboding at night. All orchestrated by the digital sound processor in the PlayStation, while most other places you can enter will have a unique preset music playing. Organ music in the church, or tense music when we're in places we're not supposed to be, and so on. There's a rather peculiar track present in the soundtrack, however, that is unused in the game. We don't know where this would have been used, but it has an uplifting tone, could possibly be an alternate ending song or something to do with celebrating an event. The town of Mizzurna Falls is quite large and it takes some time to get around, but the developers have graced us with one of the most outstanding features of this game, the fact that you can drive around in town. Don't forget, this is before even the first driver game, and in this one you can get in and out of your car. Obviously this is no Grand Theft Auto, so you can't just jack other people's vehicles, but it was such an incredible and unique feature at the time. Handling is interesting to say the least, not exactly realistic and can be fairly buggy, no pun intended. It's not other cars you have to worry about, or pedestrians stopping you in your track. You usually just slide off other cars and drive right through PEDs. The real issue is the jank collision of other things, like buildings, fences, tunnels, the side of the road. Nothing. You can pretty much get stuck almost anywhere, but usually this is recoverable by simply reversing a little bit and counter-steering. If you happen to be completely stuck on the side of the road, however, fear not. You can simply get out of your car and dial triangle, 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 triangle to call the rescue service, and they will have your car transported to one of the preset locations. Now this means you'll have to run all the way over to that place, but still better than losing your car for the rest of the playthrough. Okay, so driving isn't exactly a polished experience, but it doesn't mean it isn't fun and an incredible technical marvel. You may have already noticed there's a little fuel gauge on the screen while driving. That's right. You gotta watch out for your fuel level and make sure to top it up if it's running low. Luckily, this doesn't cost money and is supplied by the only gas station in town. Shit station, run by Winona's dad. Winona Free Gas Senior? Wait. Winona Free Gas. And Matthew kinda seem close. Is Matthew only friends with Winona for the free gas? Oh. Well, you don't have to worry about running out of fuel. If this happens, Matthew just opens a latch on the bottom of the Beetle, then starts to use his feet to push the car forwards. Running out of fuel just means you are driving at 20 kilometers per hour instead of 80. In all honesty, gas is probably not actually free. It goes way deeper than that. There's evidence in the game that early in development, they intended to implement a money system, and you'd have to manage it. Kinda like in Shenmue. Would we have had to get a job at the local harbor driving a forklift? Probably not. Maybe we would have gotten an allowance, but there are certain instances where we are given money by NPCs to do certain things, and we do have to pay certain people. We can only speculate how this could have worked, but it's an interesting leftover. In fact, there's a very strange encounter in the game when we are being robbed, and we have to hand all of our money over to the robber. How would that work exactly? You'd assume that if the robber, let's call him Robert, gets all the money from Matthew, then he will have infinite money, becoming the richest person on the planet, while Matthew is left with nothing. But that theory doesn't hold up, since Matthew still has infinite wealth to spend on things. So I think what really happened is that when Matthew gave infinite money to Robert, he didn't lose any money, since he had infinite money. But Robert also became an infiniteer, making them the two richest people on the planet. Sometimes things just cannot be settled with a simple exchange of infinite wealth. Sometimes you gotta pull out your fists and go ham. Mizzurna Falls, just like with all the other features before, sports an incredibly detailed one-on-one fighting system to settle our debates. Well, okay, not really, it's kinda jank. It's made even more difficult by the occasional lower frame rate during some of the fights. There are several moves you can pull off, basic ones like a little punch and a little shin kick, two more serious punches and kicks, and even a big knockout punch. This one is achieved after you've had 2 successful hits without getting hit, and then the third punch is the big one. This knocks the enemy down on the floor for a second, but it's not the only move that does that. You can also do a bash by pressing the forward direction twice and pressing punch. The key is to not just go offensive, but try to defend too. You can duck and try to double tap backwards to dodge hits. You can even duck away from shin kicks, it's incredible. If you happen to lose a fight, don't worry, after the game over screen you can simply pick up from where you left off and go for a new round against your opponent. If you're still having a hard time figuring out how to fight efficiently and would like to have some practice, the game features a hidden secret 2-player fighting game. That's right, even though the case only says 1 player, you can sit down with a friend or significant other, choose from a wide selection of characters, all residents of the town, and beat the living crap out of each other. Ah yes, bashing Barbara's face in is something truly unique. How you like them cigarettes, huh? While every character just uses Matthew's moveset, this is more of a fun little distraction, and here's some footage of my girlfriend and I trying this feature out on a real console. Minigame. That's the new move. It's your fault. You bought the guide from me. You didn't buy it. I wouldn't know that move.
Just want to kick you once with the wheelchair.
I'm gonna defeat you with a shin kick. Oh, in the dress. That's gonna be fun. I don't know who this is. I have no idea who this guy is. Who is this? I've never seen him before. I don't know where he hangs out. I had some practice earlier. It's no fair. You can also crouch to like dodge most of the attacks. Like you can even dodge like a shin kick, which is my favorite thing.
The game has received this lovely strategy guide that goes into nauseating detail about the game throughout its 127 pages, and for this part of the video, I'd like to point out something I did not even know existed until I read this book. There's a secret move in fighting I did not know about and didn't see it mentioned online. Or when it's being mentioned, it's actually the right name, but the wrong move. As you can see right here, the move called Matthew Bomber can be achieved by pressing forward, back circle, which makes Matthew pull off an epic headbutt and knocks the enemy down for a second. This is the real Matthew Bomber, while other guides tend to call the forward bash the Matthew Bomber. I'll be referencing this guide in later parts of the video to talk about some more cool details, but I think I'll make a separate video just talking about the guide in the future. Don't bring your fists every fight. Sometimes you'll need something higher caliber. Now you won't actually be needing to aim and shoot, gunfights are done via quicktime events. While this is not the first game to have this, it was certainly one of the first ones, for better or for worse. The button combinations are always the same in each stage though, so you can write them down if you feel like you're struggling, or maybe if one of the NPCs don't show up at the gunfight and you still have to shoot them. More on this later. Other than these gameplay elements, the game sometimes also presents us with unique one-time challenges, like chasing people trying to run away from us, or running away from things that are trying to chase us. Or sometimes where we have to follow a shady dude around without being noticed. When walking around town, or in one of the establishments of the town, you can talk to NPCs, pretty much everyone. Sometimes they can give you hints on certain things, or you can even run into this particular person, dressed in a brown jacket, who we believe is the in-game character for the creator, Taichi Ishizuka. He usually hangs around places where something is bound to happen. It's almost like he knows things. Let's talk about the characters in the game. There are a lot of NPCs we get into contact with throughout the duration of the game, and the more important ones are listed in the booklet. So let's take a look. First of all, our main character, Matthew Williams, 18 years old. He's most analogous to James in Twin Peaks, but he doesn't ride motorcycles and is desperate to find Emma on the right, who is the girl that's gone missing. Also 18 years old and is Matthew's classmate. Emma is analogous to Laura Palmer. Below Matthew we can see a familiar face. He is the town sheriff, supposedly aged 32, which is highly debatable. I believe they based Morgenstein on Sergeant Al Powell in Die Hard. Now you can see the English names can be quite comical in this game. The English translation patches have tried to clean this up. I still prefer the original English names, so throughout the video you're going to be hearing me say those names as they were intended. Morgan is most analogous to Harry Truman. He is trustworthy and he is desperate to find the missing girl. To the right of Morgan, you can see Winona Ringwald. Well, anyways, Winona is the daughter of the owner of the gas station. Winona is most analogous to Donna Hayworth and is Matthew's classmate and Emma's close friend. She's doing sort of her own investigation into the disappearance of Emma. On the next page, we have Steve Rowland. In the English translation, this has been changed to Roland. He is the father of Emma and is also the town mayor, sort of analogous to Leland Palmer. He's worried about his daughter and is desperate to get anyone's help to find her. Sarah Rowland is the mother of Emma, most analogous to Sarah Palmer. Interesting choice with the name. However, they also did a little typo in this booklet because they used the name Williams. Now, is this really a typo, or is she secretly Matthew's mum? No, it's just a typo because above it you can see Rolando, so same family name as for Steve. Below that we have Robert Ringwald. I just like to call him Winona Sr., the father of Winona, who is very protective of her. Mary Lou Rang, she's most analogous to Lucy in Twin Peaks. She can be a little weird. She has a bit of an obsession with plants, to Mogan's dismay. And we have her husband below that, Hadzun Rang. Now the Rang name has been changed to Lang in the translations. He could be compared to Andy, however he's definitely not as foolish and is way more competent. Captain Nas is the owner of the general store and is Matthew's legal guardian, apparently his uncle. He could be compared to Big Ed. He's definitely a good guy and is also very much into hunting. Owen Strasberg is the guy who's found the girl that's been attacked by an animal at the start of the game. James Loloma. I love that last name. I have been wondering if that was meant to be maybe Roloma or Loroma. Either way, it's an interesting name. He's a doctor, a psychiatrist, and Emma has been a patient of him. So in a way you could say that he is like Jacoby, if it weren't for the fact that right next to him on the right there's a guy who kind of looks like Jacoby, Samuel Groover. Eccentric, weird. He is of some help to our investigation though. Below that, Rolane Hines. Now this name is unique. It's been changed to Lorraine Haynes in the translation patches. You could say she's sort of a combination Norma and Shelley. She's nice and helpful, overall a pleasant person, and she knows how much Matthew likes his milk. Kathy Flannery, the girl that's been hurt by an animal at the start of the game. We don't get to know much about her. Throughout our investigation we do learn some more, but generally it's a bit of a mystery. However, I've actually found her model in the game, so I'm not sure why, but they decided that she does have a 3D model. We never see it in the game. Except for in the library. She is the librarian. That's her. That's her model. Right there. I found her. Father Barton, or also known as Burton here, although I suppose it would be pronounced Barton or Barton. Father Barton. He is the town priest, and he's also adopted Kathy. He can be creepy sometimes and says some weird things, so while Kathy could be considered analogous to Ronette Pulaski, Father Barton I can't really put anywhere, I suppose. Mel Aston, he's the town bad guy. Interestingly enough, here it says he's 17 years old, though in the game I believe he's mentioned as being 18 years old. He's the boyfriend of Rolane, and is the typical rebel without a cause type of guy, more similar to Bobby in Twin Peaks. Dennis Aston, he basically owns half the town. A lot of people dislike him. He's also the father of Mel. He has a bit of an abrasive personality. So not exactly like Garland, but the similarities are more facial, I would say. One of my favorite English names, Lids Holden. She's a teacher at school and is the teacher of Emma, Matthew, and Winona. She aids our investigation quite a bit, and also has a grandmother, Barbara Holden, who is a wheelchair user and can be found in the local hospital, diagnosed with ouchie ouchie feet. She loves cigarettes and is a bit of a gossip master. Then we have Wolf, the owner of Bar Wolves. He seems like an alright guy, but some of Matthew's questions can be quite annoying to him, but I can understand it. Isabella is the singer at Bar Wolves. I think she was inspired by Dorothy in Blue Velvet. Then we have Bonehead. Not much information on this guy. Kind of seems like the local bad guy. Mel may or may not have some ties to him. So here's Roletta, or Loretta, or I don't even know anymore. We don't know much about her, but she apparently knew Kathy. Now if we take a look at the strategy guide, we can get even more information. While there are 2 full pages dedicated to the connections between the characters, here we can learn what kind of cars the characters are driving, because everyone has their own car, and while you can obviously figure this out by following people, this guide neatly lists them all. As you can see, Matthew drives the beige Volkswagen Beetle, while Winona has no car. Morgan Stain drives the good old police SUV, while Hudson Rang drives a sedan. Mary Lou has no car, and Cohen Strasberg drives a red Jeep looking thing. Captain Nas has his blue pickup truck. James Loloma drives a white sedan. Samuel Groover has this black sedan. And and Steve Rowland has a similar but slightly different looking black sedan. Sarah has no car, while Father Button drives this burgundy looking sedan. Here's Mel's chopper. No, fit for a bad guy. Then we can see Dennis's yellow pickup truck. Rowland doesn't drive. Liz Holden has a small silver, or more like black, hatchback. I think they could have actually shown the wheelchair itself that Barbara is driving, but they decided that it doesn't count as a vehicle. Winona Sr. drives a red pickup truck. Wolf drives a black SUV. Isabella has a black sedan, very similar to Steve's, so it's easy to confuse them. And Bonehead and Loretta doesn't seem to drive anything, although they could have put the taco truck there, although she doesn't actually drive it around, it's more of her home, I guess. This book really is a deep well of knowledge and information about the game. Not only does it detail multiple playthrough scenarios with different outcomes, but it even lists the schedule of every important character throughout the week in a timetable. This attention to detail is a perfect fit for this game. Many times I found it incredibly useful when I was looking for a certain character at a certain time of day. Now, I'm not going to pretend this game doesn't have any issues, because there's plenty of them. While I've hinted at some of them earlier, I'm going to group the rest of them together in this part of the video. A lot of people have tried and failed to play through the game, have lost interest after the first day, or just given up after not having a clue what to do. So it can be a difficult game to figure out, but also a difficult one to play. While the controls are satisfactory in my opinion, there's no denying this game is very janky. But I like it. I like janky games. And this one is right up my alley. There's something charming about the way it all only barely works. The sad reality is that this game was rushed, and needed a bit more time in the oven. You can often get stuck on things trying to navigate. The saving system is the most primitive I've seen in any game to date, where the game basically asks all the questions in advance about saving without even letting you look at the memory card once. So you go to sleep, and then the game asks you if you want to save, to which you can say yes or no. Then if you say yes, it asks you if you want to use A, B, or C to save on. You pick your letter. Then the game asks you to confirm this. Then asks which memory card you want to save on. Confirm that, and then it just goes ahead and saves with the selected settings. Whether or not there's even a save there, who knows? Not even you. Since when you go to load your save from the main menu, it doesn't show any sort of information on your saves. Just choose A, B, or C. You pretty much have to also write down what days you've saved on which files, because the game won't be able to tell you unless you want to try saves blindly and hope it's the right one. This one's made even worse by the fact that you cannot quit the game once you started it. There's no way to go back to the main menu, no soft reset option that we know of. The only way to do it is to reset your console, which may or may not be a big pain in the ass depending on your setup. Saving and reloading is also something you are probably going to want to use to fix certain aspects of the game. Your playthrough is basically guaranteed to have glitches, and the more time you play in a single session, the more broken the game becomes. We know of many weird glitches that happen to NPCs. None of them are necessarily game-breaking in a negative way, so you will not softlock, but there may be some funny side effects and hilarious cutscene memes emerging. Once you save your game and reload it, things should be back to normal. The game gets a fresh start, so to speak. I think this is completely understandable given the rushed development and the borderline miraculous achievement of this game. The game will also most likely crash. It tends to crash most often randomly while driving. The game doesn't have much in the way of error handling, so even just ejecting the disc will make it stop working. Reloading the disc won't have any effect, so if you happen to have one of those flimsy PS2s with a loose lid, better put some weight on it, cause once it opens there's no return. You're gonna have to restart your console. Also, if you want to play on emulators, they can be a struggle to get the game to play on properly, and don't think you can weasel your way out of this by using save states. Oh, I'll just reload my save state to fix problems. Save states create a snapshot of the contents of the memory, so all of what happened up until that point will still be there, and it will count as a single play session. If you get a weird issue or crash, it's gonna happen from a save state as well. I think this is a great time to discuss the best way to play the game. What kind of console do you need to play the game properly? This question's a bit more complicated to answer than you'd think. Let's break it down to all the options and all of the pros and cons. The original PlayStation, known as the PSX, or PS1, or PS1, or ONE, or Oni-chan, or like when people like to spell it with a capital O even though it's supposed to be lower. This is the intended experience, and it can be quite rough sometimes. The indoor sections are fine, but once we step outside it can easily dip down to a single-digit frame rate. The plus is that it is going to work fine since it is the way to play the game. You will need a way to be able to play burnt discs or image files if you want to play one of the translation patches. The PlayStation 2. This is a lot more complicated. There are several revisions of the PS2, and I don't just mean fat and slim. It's more about the serial number. Consoles from SCPH 10,000 up to 70,000 will all have the original PS1 CPU, so will play the game about the same speed as a PS1 would. However, not all are created equally. Good luck getting an NTSC game working on a PAL 39, 50, or 70K console, the Mechacon ones. You're gonna need a lot of homebrew stuff to get there. By the way, if your answer to this is Popstarter, then your answer is wrong. That's emulation. We'll talk about emulation at the end of this part. However, when we get to Deckard consoles, SCPH 75 to 90K, things are still kinda weird. You can now use Mechapon to boot into any region game on any region consoles, even backup ones. While with the old Mechacon ones, you were only able to do that with an NTSCU console. But it doesn't stop there. These Deckard consoles are known to be able to play PS1 games faster than the previous models. Why is that? The PS1 CPU is gone and the I/O processor is now a PowerPC based chip called the Deckard. This has more horsepower than the original PS1 CPU and will play some games faster. Much faster. Starting from 2005, you were able to enjoy this game at a better frame rate. It doesn't slow down as much anymore in town, and it's absolutely blazing near the junkyard. Thankfully, indoor sections have a capped frame rate because I think they'd be unplayable without it. Strangely, the outdoors parts are uncapped, so our Deckard console is cutting through this game like a hot knife through butter. This has to be the biggest uplift in performance I've ever seen of any PSX game when comparing the original console to the PS2. And it makes sense this game would be CPU bound, because there's just simply so much stuff going on all the time. And this is not even the weird part. So, if you are using, say, an NTSC American or a PAL Deckard console, and you use Mechapon or ModChip to make it region-free, you will get some interesting alterations to the music. Farts. Lots of farts. This had us puzzled for a while. Why this is happening on everything but a Japanese console? I believe the reason behind this is that when they were making the PS1 driver for the Deckard consoles, they ran into compatibility issues and had to apply patches to the software to fix this. And it seems like these patches are region dependent, so an American console will have fixes for some American games, while the Japanese one for Japanese games. Mod chipping and mechaponing doesn't fully convert your console, so it doesn't inherit the patches needed to fix things. Someone at Sony tried Mizzurna Falls, it sounded weird and they just fixed it. So all in all, a Japanese region console will be needed for the original audio. Other things don't seem to be affected, just the music, and quite honestly I find it entertaining, so I play with it. Now let's talk about emulation. The PlayStation 3. The PS3's built-in PSX emulator seems to handle the game fine. No audio bugs, and about the same performance as Deckard PS2. Load times are a bit slower though. And for PC emulation, weirdly enough, you're gonna have a hard time with freezing and textures not loading if you try to use one of the more accurate emulators. You'll have to dig deep into the depths of emulation and dig out the very popular but fairly hardware inaccurate one called DuckStation. This emulator by default won't play the game properly, and you'll run into the same issues as mentioned before. But go into the settings and change the CD read speed up to anything higher than default, and you should be good to go. Just don't go too high because too much throughput will cause the game to crash. Now hold on a second. Earlier I said translation patches? There are more than one? Well, as any big community, the game translation community isn't free of drama, and there is a lot of confusion about what the two options offer. If someone is beaten to the finish line by another translator, there's sure to be bloodshed. Just like it happened a little over a year ago with the release of an awesome little partially machine-translated Germs patch, which had parts of the community up in arms. When it comes to Mizzurna Falls, I was waiting eagerly for the release of any translation patch at all, and it looked like the Team Sirosan and Nikita 600 translation patch was getting ready to release in March of 2021. However, somehow another one came out just days before, the Owl patch. I didn't even realize this at the time and went ahead and played the Sirosan patch version. It was only a few weeks later or so that I tried a playthrough of the Owl patch, and I'm very glad I did. I didn't understand what happened to the Sirosan patch. It was meant to be a modernization of the translation script originally created by Resident Evie to try and make it feel more casual. However, the writing has gone off into so many weird directions that it didn't even feel like the same game anymore. Playing the Owl patch, I immediately recognized the original script that I've first seen the game with in Iconoclast's Let's Play of the game. I honestly believe the Sirosan patch has gone too far. Its sometimes distasteful rewrite of the original script doesn't feel authentic, so for that reason alone I cannot recommend it. Even still, that may not be the biggest problem. While playing this version, I've encountered some odd glitches that have not happened in other versions, not to mention that the game will absolutely not work on a PS2. We do not know exactly why. The game just immediately locks up upon displaying the first subtitle. It may have something to do with the lacking font set on the PS2, it's not been confirmed. Also, sometimes important information is missing from the patch, such as the phone number to Noz. In the apartment building's bulletin board, Matthew notices that Noz's phone number is listed on the board. Except in the Sirosan patch, they forgot to actually write down that number. It just says that it's there. Bar Wolf has been inexplicably changed to Club Wolves, and signs above the diner have not been redone, unlike in the Owl patch. Both patches do try to clear up the English names, like I said before, to their approximate intended spelling, but I still prefer the charming English ones and tend to refer to the characters by that name. Funny side note, the translation patches cause the music to go even more berserk on Deckard non-Japanese consoles, to everyone's delight, possibly due to the fact that the patches mess around with the memory values. You might find it weird how much I actively dislike this patch and that I'm desperately trying to convince you to pick the other one. I'm just doing the opposite of what the community is doing. Somehow there is so much misinformation out there on these patches, I just want to speak up about it. Don't let others force an inferior translation patch down your throat when there's clearly a better option out there. People will often lie or completely confuse the two patches when describing them, but the gist of it is always the same. You get recommended the Sirosan patch. The Owl patch doesn't even get represented on romhacking.net as of the time of making this video, but I've linked the download link to this patch in the description. So finally, I'd like to mention various trivia and glitches about the game that I could not fit anywhere else. You might be familiar with the almost propaganda-like warnings about this game on forums, on how broken it is and how terrible things can happen, such as the disappearing map glitch, which can only really occur on some emulators, broken CD drive consoles, if you eject the disc, or by using the Sirosan patch. Or how about the fearsome event stack glitch, where you have to be careful not to trigger two events on top of each other because they can ruin your progress and whatnot. You have absolutely nothing to worry about. It is hard to softlock or hardlock the game this way. There's only one very specific spot we know where this can even happen at all, and it can be super easily avoided. It's a cutscene with Winona trying to happen at the same time as a cutscene with Morgan after a certain event. But if you talk to Winona first, which you should do anyways, this is a non-issue. Otherwise, if it does occur, it simply hard crashes the game, so you'll know. You can see people through walls. This isn't necessarily a glitch, though it does seem like one sometimes. When you're traveling through buildings, you can see characters doing their business. This works perfectly when someone exits a building and you can still see them walking around on the sidewalk, but it does have some funny side effects. The reason this happens is because it seems like the interior world pretty much lines up with the exterior world map. So when you enter a building, you're still in the same area, just switched over to the interior version of it. And the rooms inside are also correlated, so everything is where it's supposed to be. You might be thinking, isn't that normal? There are quite a few games that do it differently. One example that comes to mind is GTA. While Vice City has a similar setup, a separate interior and exterior world the game switches between, and you can even drive around in the empty interior world without the textures loading in, while all the collisions are still there. But in San Andreas, they've placed the interior world up in the sky, and if you manage to clip out of the building, you can try to fly and discover other interiors in the area. However, it won't be anywhere near the actual outside world. In Mizzurna Falls, you can also clip out of bounds from certain maps and roam around in the town freely on foot. You can even cross the water, but you'll have to heavily rely on the map, as none of the textures will be loaded apart from the interior's nearby outside textures, and no triggers will work. If you've ever wondered, what does the edge of the map look like, and can you leave the town? Well, no. The road is simply blocked and you cannot leave the area by normal means. While we're on the topic of interiors, make sure you park your car carefully and don't block the door of the building you're trying to enter. You might only block the entrance this way, but worst case scenario, just because you enter a building, it's not a guarantee that you can actually get out. As I've mentioned before, rooms are directly where they should be, so it's possible that your car will clip into the building you're in, just enough to block access to the entrance. I've successfully locked myself in the hospital like this before, so you gotta be careful. There's an incredibly useless but kind of fun thing you can do, which is glitching out the stools in Heinz Diner. If you sit down at the counter and order your food, you're obligated to consume it. You're not allowed to get up from your stool until all the food or drink is gone. But if you wait around a little bit, late enough for it to be closing time, they ask you to leave and close its doors. That stool will remain taken as there was food in front of you. I'm assuming the game simply disables the ability to use the stool while there is food, and it re-enables it once you ate it. But since we never ate it, that stool is now unusable for the rest of the game. You can actually glitch all 9 stools in the game using another interesting glitch. Remember the beginning of the game with the prologue that you can skip? Turns out if you skip it at a very specific time, when you're just about to leave the hospital, and then at a later date, even as late as Sunday, go back to the hospital, then try to leave, the final cutscene of the prologue triggers all of a sudden, as it had no chance to clear out. This reactivates the prologue and puts you back on Monday, 10 AM. The game operates on a set of triggers, and I believe what progress you've achieved throughout the game will remain, albeit there isn't much you can do without going to the hospital. But you can glitch out stools, so I suppose with this method you can glitch out all 9 stools in the diner. Karaoke is big in Japan, so the game comes with the lyrics to its main song in the booklet, so you can sing along. Even though Bar Wolves opens at 8 PM officially, only Matthew is not allowed to go in earlier, because you can see a lot of NPCs going as early as 7 PM. I've talked about the way the NPC schedules work and how it's about when they start to move to their new location and not when they arrive. The game moves NPCs around even when you're not around them, so they can get to the place where they are supposed to be. But what happens if you sleep for 1 hour? Does the game still keep track of their journey, or do they end up being late to their destination? Actually, the game simply moves every NPC to their desired location, skipping their entire journey. I'll tell you an example. On Wednesday, Morgan gets up from his desk at the police station at exactly 9:40 AM to start driving to the diner for an early lunch. Normally, he arrives at around 11 PM, also dependent on how many times you've paused the in-game timer. However, if you go to sleep for 1 hour exactly when they get up at 9:40, then wake up at 10:40, they will already be sitting at the diner, so you can interact with them earlier. This can be a useful tool to aid your progress if you already know where they need to be, and also can sometimes fix NPC behavior, as they can get lost and not show up where they ought to be. Some cutscenes can happen even when the character is not currently present at the location where they are in the cutscene. This can lead to some interesting side effects since the game renders a new NPC in these cutscenes, and if you time it just right, you can end up spotting two of the same characters on the screen, such as the classic double Mogan. One of the more amusing glitches we've found is something we've dubbed Needy Winona glitch. This is a bit tricky to explain without any spoilers, so at the end of the video I'll be directing you to another channel that will have a video on speedrunning this game. That one shall explain the details. But basically by showing Winona an item while she's in front of Emma's house, it will make her follow you. Then talking to her will trigger a script that makes her walk forward about 12 or so steps. However, since she's already following you, she cannot complete those steps, and for lack of a better word, starts orbiting around Matthew. I knew there was something between these two. Mizzurna Falls is objectively not a perfect game, but if it's right for you, then it is the perfect game. While it might be frustrating to some, the ambitiousness of the game really sells it, and I honestly think if you give it a good go, it will not disappoint. That's most of all I wanted to say, and I'm probably forgetting a couple things, but oh well, I can always make another video. I hope you enjoyed this, and if you'd like to learn more about the game, go check out fellow Mizzurna nerd Borizol's channel. In this video, I purposefully neglected to mention anything about speedrunning this game. Even though I've spent most of my time with this game speedrunning it, I wanted to focus on all the aspects of the game casual gamers will be interested in. But also because Borizol fellow speedrunner is currently working on a big speedrunning video for this game, and he is going to talk about a lot of cool stuff, history and speed tech. So I cannot wait to see it. I'll later link it as a pinned comment when it's done. Unfortunately, we couldn't time it together properly, but I hope you'll check it out too. Also, you should check out both of our Twitch channels as we tend to talk about Mizzurna a lot and play it too occasionally. Thanks for watching and take care.